Hi everybody, my name is Brandon Metcalf and I'm a prosecutor here in the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office. Before I was asked the question of what my American dream is, I realized that I hadn't really put a lot of thought into it in the last couple of months or even years. In my first life, I was a performance violinist. I practiced every day. I practiced countless scales, countless notes, and bow stroke after bow stroke, my goal was to be one of the best performers of the violin, and I wanted to do that with the best people, playing the best music in some of the world's greatest halls. And that was my American dream. It was to be the best at something and to earn the right to call myself a great violinist. But when that life ended, thanks to a lot of support, mostly from my parents, I decided that I wanted to go to law school because I didn't know what else to do and I wasn't particularly good at a lot of other things. And I had to find myself a new American dream. And that dream, when I was in law school, was to be the best lawyer, to argue the most exciting cases in front of, some of the meanest judges. Some of whom are hopefully going to be watching this video. But after thinking about it, I realized that my dream, or the version of what I called the dream before, was always going to change. What was the goal? What was the finish line? And ultimately, I realized that my actual American dream is to have the opportunity to do whatever it is that I want. And I've been extremely blessed to always have that opportunity. And really, I think that's what is so great about the life that I lived here in America. And my ultimate dream is to be able to share that life with my family, with my friends, and to also earn a living in a way that I'm proud of doing it. And if I can do that and still have enough time to play with my kids and golf and cook and drill, then I've had it.
Hi everyone, my name is Eliana Avalor-Brook. I'm one of the attorneys here in Blaha Law. Most of you know me as Yana, and I am here to talk about the American dream. I grew up in the Philippines. I was born in the Philippines. I moved here back in 2015, right after I finished my bachelor's degree. I finished law school at Michigan State University, and here I am living the American dream. And what does that mean to me? I had to think about this long and hard, but ultimately I think living the American dream means working hard and earning enough to be able to spoil and maybe treat the people you love the most. I am happy to be able to spoil my nieces and nephews in the Philippines who I have not seen in years, but whenever they need something, I'm able to help them. I am the first person in our family to finish law school here in America. It might be a little corny, but I do see that as an accomplishment, and being able to help clients, I think that's another part of the American dream. So right now, I am happy to say that I'm living the American dream. Get to spoil my family a little bit. I get to spoil my mom, who still works in her 60s, has helped me through law school, and being able to take her on vacation sometimes is one of the most rewarding things. And ultimately, as attorneys, we get to help so many people and touch so many people's lives, which I think is the most rewarding part of our job and of our American dream. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, I'm Judge Chantel Porter, and I'm going to talk about what the American dream means for me. So I would say that the American dream for myself really talks about my ancestry and how it is that the uniquely African American experience in this country. Specifically, I'm very proud that I am able to trace my heritage in this country well into the 1800s. And I'm able to look at that lineage of people who came to this country not by choice, but by chains and under bondage, and throughout the generations were able to endure unimaginable hardships, and the contributions that they made to this country in building this country that sometimes aren't even still recognized that their labor, their free labor, their uncompensated labor, that built the basis of our economy and the early foundations of our country, and the contributions that they made, really speaks to the endurance of what it means to truly be an American and find a way and make a way out of no way. I'm really proud that as I stand here today, I consider myself to be the granddaughter of two very, very important historical moments, great moments in American history. That first one being what happened after the ending of slavery and after Reconstruction, and essentially the Jim Crow South. My mother grew up during segregation. She was one of the first classes to integrate her high school. And so she has very distinct memories of growing up in segregation, not being able to go to certain schools, going to certain stores, restaurants, drinking out of water fountains, using bathrooms. That is a very, very unique experience of being a daughter who grew up in that time in our country, that very unfortunate time, and being a living witness to the civil rights movement. So growing up with my mother, having been that living, bearing witness to the civil rights movement, and understanding what that meant for us as a country, and how the changes that happened, not just in the protest on the streets, but the legal changes, the changes that occurred to our laws, the changes that occurred in the Supreme Court and our statutes, some of the most landmark cases that we're all familiar with, like Brown v. Board of Education, but some of the other cases that we're not as familiar with, those cases that really broke ground for equality, and having a parent impart that to me because she was present for it and lived through it. The other part of this American experience that I feel very close to and connected to is the Great Migration. The Great Migration was a moment in time where African Americans who really were tired of segregation and the cruel brutality of facing lynchings and essentially threats to their livelihood and their existence chose to move northward. And they migrated to cities such as Chicago. My dad grew up, was born in the south side of Chicago in a very predominant Black community at the time. And they were able to build this community of people who all came from the South. And they were able to build a community where they had their own businesses, where they had their own doctors and lawyers and pharmacists and all these great things, this community that they were able to build. My grandparents were business owners in Inglewood at the time and had a very, very thriving business and were able to do that. So when I have these two legacies that I think really were imparted to me as a young child, I think about what that American dream looks like for me. And my experience is unique, but it is a uniquely African American experience that I'm extremely, extremely proud of. My parents had the amazing opportunity to go to college and come back to Chicago. They went to college. They went to a historically Black college and university, which is another part of the American experience. And they were able to come back to Chicago and start a family. They choose to move to the northwest suburbs, and we were one of the very first families in the northwest suburbs in the 80s. And that in and of itself presented numerous challenges for them that I then was able, unfortunately, to experience when you had neighbors who, upon us moving, were very cruel to us and very not nice, and eventually moved. The concept of white flight definitely occurred on our street. The for sale signs could not pop up fast enough when we moved onto our block. But regardless of that, my parents taught me just such amazing values of endurance, of love, of being a part of a community, of building something that lasts. And essentially all of those characteristics are uniquely American and are part of things that I am so fortunate to be able to lay claim to. They taught me to, no matter what, excel and pursue your dreams, and never let anybody tell you no. Never let anybody tell you that you're not qualified or that you don't belong or that you don't have a place or a seat at the table. And in fact, if they tell you that, bring your own chair and make a seat at the table for yourself. And these types of lessons that I learned, I think were able to propel me to pursue my dreams and never shy away from accomplishing anything that I wanted to accomplish, and being supported by my family, and really standing on the shoulders of my ancestors who didn't get the opportunities to thrive and do the things that I've been able to do and I've been able to accomplish. I'm very privileged that I'm able to contribute to this amazing legal community that we have here in DuPage County. I'm excited for the growth that we've made in this county and the progress that we still have to make. I understand the importance of me sitting here as a member of the judiciary, and the value that brings to all of us as a legal community. And it's not lost on me that the more we have of these diverse experiences and these lived experiences of what we all share as our American experience, the better we can all be as a legal community and the better we can be as a judiciary.
Hello there. My name is Harry Smith. I'm an attorney in DuPage County, Illinois, and I'm going to give you my version of how the rule of law applies itself to the American dream. Like many of us, when I was younger, my understanding of the American dream was that it was upward mobility, the ability to get an education, maybe achieve beyond what your parents or your grandparents ever did, and the lack of restrictions towards us all trying to achieve our goals. I have been fortunate enough to have parents who did give me and provide me an education all the way through law school. And I've used those things they've given me to do better, but I have a different understanding of the American dream now that I'm older and look back on it. Not everybody is given those same chances by their families, and it is in fact the rule of law in our country and this system of judicial balances that helps all of us have the ability to achieve goals. And that can come through the formation of government programs that provide educational opportunities to people whose families can't. That can come through the schools themselves being pushed to consider candidates who may not simply come from money, but that are qualified and have the educational background to sustain those levels of achievement. That can come through programs I've learned about where they provide work and housing to people that otherwise don't have easy access to it. And so as I look at this in its totality, there is certainly a version of the American dream that is you're going to do better than your parents. But the more I consider it, I think the American dream is truly about all of us kind of providing that guidance and the ability to others to achieve at the same level, maybe not the same rate, but at the same level that all of us have been given an opportunity. So I view the American dream as an opportunity more than I do a thing or an institution. And I think the rule of law is what guides us through that path towards hopefully achieving the goals through those opportunities. Thank you.
The cornerstone of democracy means that the rule of law applies to everyone. One way to ensure that that happens is the right to vote, and that every citizen has the right to vote. As we commemorate Law Day today, let's talk about how the right to vote and democracy is important for all of us. We want to honor the people who have been the pioneers on voting and democracy in our country, but let's keep it local. Ellen Martin is the first woman to vote in the state of Illinois. She was a lawyer here in the area, and most importantly, she was a DuPage County resident, a Lombardian at that. Ellen was born in New York State, and she studied law privately until she attended the University of Michigan Law School. In 1876, she was admitted to the Illinois bar. She and her law partner, Mary Perry, opened up the first female law firm on LaSalle Street in Chicago. But at that time, female attorneys struggled because they were not allowed to practice law like we are today. They could file a case, they could meet with clients, but they could not argue because they were not registered to vote. So Ellen Martin and her partner, Mary Perry, voting was important to them and democracy was important to them. So Ellen Martin took advantage of a loophole in the Lombard Village Charter. That charter allowed anyone who is a resident of Lombard the right to vote. There was no reference to gender. On April 6, 1891, Ellen Martin and a group of 14 prominent Lombardian women marched to their local voting place, and they demanded their right to vote in a local election. And while the election judges were a bit stunned, they allowed those women to cast their ballot. And a few months later, a DuPage County judge agreed that those women had the right to vote and registered those votes. They were the first women in the state of Illinois to ever vote, and that was well before the 19th Amendment. Now, unfortunately, that did not solidify the right to vote for women here in Illinois because the Illinois legislature was not happy with that. However, that group of women did not stop there, and Lombard became a beacon of hope for the women's suffrage movement until the 19th Amendment was passed. Ellen Martin did not live to see that day. However, Ellen and that group of women changed the landscape of voting here in Illinois, particularly for women. We want to thank those women for making sure that the rule of law applied to everyone, and most importantly, that they held out and made sure that women here in DuPage County would get the right to vote.